Good day, and it's amazing that we are here today, and it's a beautiful, fantastic. I think it's about 82 degrees where we are today. I'm not sure where you are today. And we have Steve Baker. I'm Russ Johns, your host, and Marian LaSalle is the co-host today, and we're from Future Media TV. And Steve Baker is he's the host of Healthcare Peace of Mind. And Steve Baker is here to help answer your questions. We're talking about Medicare. Over 10,000 people every day are turning 65 at this particular moment in time.
Oh, that's a lot of people.
And Steve is here to help you decide what's required, what's necessary, and some of the things that are actually being talked about in the Medicare arena at this day and age. And if you're in that arena or that age group, or you're thinking about it or know somebody, you have a father, sister, mother, brother that you can help, share this information. It's incredibly valuable. And Steve, thank you for being here again once more, and glad that we were able to connect on the phone, on the screen, and on the internet here, and share some of this valuable information. How are you doing? Tell us about what you're doing this week. What's the big deal today?
Well, last week, Russ and Marian, we discussed traditional Medicare, and you remember I was talking about the two prongs of Medicare.
Uh-huh.
And so we spent practically, I know we spent the whole show talking about traditional Medicare with a supplement. And today we want to talk about the other prong, and that is Medicare Advantage.
Medicare Advantage.
Medicare Advantage. And the two are quite different. They're cousins, but they're distant cousins, as a matter of fact. Practically the only thing they really share is health treatment by a provider, and they share the word Medicare.
That's it?
Well, that's it pretty much. I mean,
wow.
They're really different altogether. So let me talk about Medicare Advantage briefly. And
just for the sake of somebody that has just joined you, would you like to just do a recap on the three highlights of the week last week when we talked about Medicare?
Uh-huh.
Could you do that just to highlight on this show particularly?
Sure. Last week we talked about traditional Medicare, and that was the original Medicare that was established back in 1965.
And we talked about the deductible.
Yes.
And the cost.
And travel. Are we covered when we travel?
Right. And it's grown and evolved in all of these years, 50 some odd years later, 51 years later. And it's, you wouldn't recognize it from 51 years ago, but it's been added to, it's been chopped up, just kind of like chopped liver, whatever, just diced and sliced and diced, but it's really a good product now. And some while back, I don't know exactly when, but some years back, Medicare Advantage came to be.
Got it.
And the way Medicare Advantage works is when someone joins, they have two choices. They must take one or the other, and it's different in that they are assigned a physician, which is the primary care physician, and they must work through that physician. Medicare, the one of the major differences in the two is that traditional Medicare with a supplement has a premium. They both, one of the other things that they share is that they both have a $104.90 monthly premium for Part B. Both of them, the recipients or the beneficiaries must pay that $104.90 in one form or the other. For someone who's on Social Security, if they're taking Social Security, they can have that $104.90 deducted out of their Social Security check. The other way that they can pay it is that they can be direct billed from Medicare if they don't happen to be on a Social Security check yet. They are direct billed for that for 5 months at a time, so they get a bill for $600 and some odd dollars, 4 or 5 months for $600 and some odd dollars for their Part B premium. So that Part B premium must be paid if you join Medicare. So on either situation.
I have a question about that because
Okay.
at one time you told us that you automatically get signed up for Medicare. So what you just said makes me believe that there's one more step.
Well, you're automatically signed up. Remember, there are four parts of Medicare: Part A, Part B, Part C is a Medicare Advantage and Part D. And I want to talk to you later in the show about Part D.
Okay.
But Part A there's no cost to that. And if I say I know that there's no cost, you paid the cost through the years if you have a payroll deduction, or if you're even self-employed or whatever, you pay a Medicare tax. That pays for Part A. So Part A is already paid for. That's the hospital part of Medicare. That's where you're automatically enrolled at age 65 in Part A.
Got it.
You don't.
Okay.
It's not mandatory that you take Part B, but really you don't have much of a program if you don't do Part B in some form or fashion.
Right.
So that's when I say you must take Medicare, that's the Part A is mandatory. The rest of it is optional. So 95% of everyone goes ahead and takes advantage of the rest of Medicare. So Medicare Advantage is like a self-contained program. It's kind of like something that's it's an all-in-one encompassing kind of program. And it's offered by private insurance companies. There are 41 different companies in Texas and in similar situations in other states as well. 41 different companies participate in Medicare Advantage. Some of them have 2 or 3 different plans, and so you have to be real careful about it. The big one in Texas is Texan Plus. That's the one that a lot of people enroll themselves in or get enrolled in.
Okay.
Let
me ask you a question, Steve.
Sure.
So, for instance, if I'm on Medicare already and I've been signed up for a couple of years, I don't have any health issues. I don't have any, I haven't made any health changes in the last couple of years. Could I come to you and actually ask, kind of investigate a little bit about if I'm paying too much or the premium, or how would that, because I know how, like car insurance, every couple of years you go shopping, or you have the same insurance company indefinitely and you got everything covered and you get discounts because you have everything covered. That's kind of the 2 scenarios that I've had over my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so how does that work in Medicare, and can they change coverage if everything, what are the conditions for that? If they want to upgrade to Advantage or anything, make changes like that, can they talk to you about that?
Sure. Let's just take the Medicare Advantage part. Someone can enroll in Medicare Advantage for $0. I'm talking about you don't write a check for anything. It's zero. It's basically zero premium, which makes it fairly attractive to a lot of people who are lower income, perhaps, or they're just watching their dollars. They've got income, but they want to be careful about what their monthly outgo is and so forth. Medicare Advantage could be a good option for them, especially if they're in good health and so forth, and they're not running to the doctor for everything. Once they join, they can switch from the Medicare Advantage over to Medicare in the first 12 months without any issue whatsoever. So you can move over if you're dissatisfied with your doctors and so forth. And by the way, doctors move in and out of the plans all the time, so it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to see your doctor. If you're not going to a doctor anyway, it doesn't matter because you don't have a doctor that you like. So
I'm not up close and personal with my doctor, so it doesn't really matter which one they pick for me, right?
Right, exactly. So you're assigned of what's called a primary provider, and the primary provider will be your person, your go-to person. He gets a certain amount each month from you joining his plan, whether you use it or whether you don't use it. So that's a unique feature right there. But in the first 12 months, if you're unhappy with your provider, if you're unhappy with the plan, if you've had some issues, then you can switch over to traditional Medicare within the first 12 months. After the first 12 months, you can do so. However, you must qualify with a traditional Medicare provider that is a supplement provider health-wise. You have to go through underwriting in order to participate. So if you fail underwriting, for example, if you came down with cancer or whatever, you have that issue, traditional Medicare supplement companies across the board would not accept you.
So you can actually fail to an application to change.
Yes.
So it's not like I've had to go out and get physicals for life insurance, right?
Uh-huh.
And what the result is, okay, if my cholesterol's higher, my blood pressure's high, they just increase the rates and keep moving, right?
No, typically in Medicare, it's not a rate increase. It's a acceptance or denial.
Okay, that's good to know.
You're either accepted or you're not.
Mm.
So if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan within the 12 months, let's say you join a plan, and on the 8th month you have a massive heart attack, and you survive it, but the doctors are going to say you're going to be watched very carefully. You're going to have special treatment, yada yada. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and you can just see the dollars flowing out of your checking account.
Right.
At that time, it would behoove you to go ahead and switch over to a traditional Medicare where all of that's paid and your overall cost is $166 for the whole year for a deductible. On the Advantage side, if you stay there, you're going to have copays and deductibles all the time. I mean, every time you go to the doctor, there's going to be this and that. You go into the hospital, you got to fork over $900. It's a big hassle, and it's a big drain on the checkbook. So, you just kind of take it, but you paid zero premium for it. So, whatever, just
pay me now or pay me later, isn't it? Really,
pay me now or pay me later. And a lot of people,
if you're healthy and everything's running smoothly, it sounds like the Advantage program could be to your advantage, right?
Yes, it could be to your advantage, especially if you have dramatically low income and you're not, you have just enough. You say you're on disability or whatever, and you've got, maybe a Social Security check coming in and maybe another $200 or $300 monthly coming in. You really don't have any choice but to go with the Medicare Advantage. At least you've got something. And at least you can get into a doctor's office and be seen and so forth. So those are the differences in the two. Some of the specialty hospitals, such as MD Anderson, will not take Medicare Advantages. Will not take Medicare Advantage.
So if you go there and somebody takes you there in a car or something, you're going to get a bill.
Well, somebody's not going to take you there in a car because you have to be enrolled way ahead of time to go in order to get into MD Anderson.
Oh, okay.
You've got to call up and they want to know all about your insurance and so forth. At that time, they're going to tell you if you've got Texan Plus, you've got to go somewhere else for cancer treatment.
I guess if I was having a heart attack, I'd just say take me to a hospital.
Yeah, take your
first one. the first one that came by, I'd want to stop at.
Right. That's exactly right. Take you to the emergency room.
That's a hospital, isn't it?
Yeah. Take you to the emergency room, and by law, you've got to be treated.
Yeah.
And then, hey, we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That reminds me when I took a fall and back in '87, and that's when I shattered my arm.
Mm-hmm.
The ambulance driver they were driving to the hospital, and they kept passing hospitals. And I said, how come we keep passing these hospitals? And they said, because of the distance you fell, it's a trauma, and we have to take you to the trauma center.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, that's interesting. So I guess there's hospitals for everything, and you can only go to certain hospitals that are covered under your insurance, or if you're having trauma or whatever is the case.
Well, of course, you were an underage person at that time, and you're still a teeny tiny young guy because you're still underage. So
I'm still underage. I don't have Medicare experience like you do.
I don't know when you're ever going to get to be 65. I mean, it's just you just keep going. I've been watching you a long time, and you're not there yet. So.
Oh, it happens way too quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
Time flies
so
quickly.
To me, it just seems like Medicare Advantage, unless you're absolutely forced to, it would be the wrong choice because, as we get older, we have more things wrong with us. And so I can't imagine why anybody would choose that unless they just didn't have the money to pay for the premiums. Am I correct in that assumption?
Sure. Because if you've got, if you join a Medicare Advantage plan and outside of the 12 months, if you're diagnosed, say, with breast cancer in the 8th month, then you can go ahead and switch over to the Medicare Advantage without the health questions. So the health questions wouldn't come into play. But let's say it's you come down with breast cancer in the 14th month or the 15th month. You couldn't pass the health questions, the underwriting as we call it. You couldn't pass the underwriting. You would not be accepted, so you're pretty much stuck in the Medicare Advantage. Well, not pretty much stuck. You are stuck.
You're stuck.
You are stuck.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's good information to know. And anybody listening in, or anybody that listens to this in the future or anytime, it's really important that you have at least an understanding of some of the choices you have, because you do have a choice. And Steve Baker is one of the people that is seasoned veteran. He's been doing this for a long time. And Steve, it's one of these things that you know inside and out. You've had experience with it. You understand it. You've studied this stuff. And if people have a question, they just need to call you. So I put your link to your website in the show here. I'd love to be able to do that. There's probably a phone number they can get a hold of you as well. Mm-hmm. What is that phone number?
832-754-3292.
What is it?
832-754-3292.
3292.
Yes.
Before we end the show today, I'd really like for you to talk a little bit about Part D. Maybe next week we can go into it a little deeper, but can you just talk a little bit about the prescription plan?
Tease us
That's a Part D. Part
D is in dog. Got it. Part D is a part of Medicare that has its own personality. It's like
all these little silos of information, huh?
In a lot of cases, Part D is probably in people's minds when they turn 65. The Part D is the most important part of Medicare, because they can qualify health wise because of the open enrollment period. If you're turning 65, you don't have to answer the health questions even on the traditional Medicare. But they want to know what's going to happen with their drugs and so forth. and I spend a lot of time with folks explaining how it works and so forth. One of the key things that people need to know this, and if anyone is watching who doesn't know this, it's important to know. Now we can call 1-800-MEDICARE 24/7.
Really?
365 days a year. Christmas, yes. New Year's, yes. Thanksgiving, yes. They'll answer the phone.
1-800-MEDICARE?
1-800-MEDICARE.
Wow.
And they will help enroll someone in a good Part D plan. And so
that's primarily for people that are concerned about their drugs.
Yes. And a lot of people are.
Sure.
So they want to know what's going to be their co-pays and deductibles and so forth with their prescriptions.
Makes sense.
Whether there's two kinds of prescription drugs. There's brand name and generic, and for the most part, people as much as possible like to stay on the generic because they're $2 to $4 a month, and as opposed to $80 or $90 a month.
Yeah.
So that is a huge issue, and once I get that settled in people's minds about their options there, we could go ahead and talk about traditional Medicare. But invariably, people want to keep coming back to the drugs, and so I'd like to get that out of the way and clarified.
Well, we'll have to go into a little more detail about drugs next week.
Yes. We're gonna. In fact, next week, probably what we'll do, I'll spend the show on just Part D.
That'll be wonderful, and then we can actually catalog that, and people can go back to it every time and watch it and know what they need to, or at least understand what they can review before they call you and book an appointment with you, Steve.
Sure.
Because I think really, ultimately, I mean, even after several shows here, I would still feel more comfortable if I said, okay, here's my situation, Steve. Let's talk about what I want to do, and here's here's my goal, and
I think that's a good idea, Russ. Why don't we try to find somebody that's going to turn 65 and have them on the show so they can ask real questions?
I think that's a great idea. We should probably do that.
Let's do that. Let's find somebody. How do we go about finding somebody that's 64?
I know there's about 10,000 people a day going on the.
Well, I've got a stack of cards about this thick. Just in my little town that I live in, that are turning 65 in the next 5 months. It's stacked this high.
Okay, so we need to get some of those names and call them up and ask if there's an opportunity that they'd like to be on a show with us.
Sure.
Or we can put it out on social media too, Marion.
Yes.
We're putting a call out to our list.
It may take us a couple of weeks, but we're going to get somebody in here that's 64 that has questions, and they can ask the real stuff. Because week after week we have you on the show, and you're answering the questions. Honestly, it's still very confusing to me, but it's starting to sink in.
It's starting to sink in.
It is. It's starting to sink in, but man, it's confusing. Thank goodness for you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm glad we have an expert in the house. So. And here's a thought that just came to mind. I mean, obviously, health conditions and situations like that, we may not want to necessarily talk about everything on the show. However, we could talk about certain criteria that they need to understand and talk about some of this. Mm-hmm. And it would just be good to get, another perspective, right?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
So we could do that. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. So
that would work.
So next week we're going to be talking about Part D, not Plan D.
Part D prescriptions.
Prescription, D for drugs, and what we're going to do to buy our drugs through Medicare and some of the options we have, right?
Yeah,
and as a matter of fact, more than likely, I would be able to pick out one of my clients that I've just enrolled or whatever and ask them if they're computer savvy, and we can blab them in, blab blab blab, like you blab me in, blab blab blab.
Yeah, you're a veteran now, Steve. You're
I don't know about that
now.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Mary had asked me if I could message her on Facebook, and I'm going, I don't think so.
You're like, can I email?
I'm kind of like you are with Medicare. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do that.
Okay,
Isn't that
that's
a beautiful thing, though? I mean, realistically, isn't that a beautiful thing that we're sitting here? We happen to be in the same location. We wouldn't have to be in the same location. You have an expertise in an area that we don't.
Uh-huh.
You have an expertise in an area that you don't.
Right.
And there's things that Marion is incredibly skilled at that I have no understanding whatsoever. And it's just amazing that we can actually get together and do something cool like this. And it just blows me away every time I get on here.
It's actually kind of a miracle, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, this couldn't happen 5 years ago, right?
Not even. You know, and like I tell people, I've been in technology since '91. Right? And in radio and television broadcasting, and that's what got me so excited, was not the fact that I could create a podcast or a broadcast. It's the fact that the technology allows us to do this, and it's just amazing. So, you know, you can actually reach out to 10,000 people a day and have them see your message, and it's a matter of just connecting the dots. It's just a matter of connecting those dots and having people know that you're out there and you can help them. So
I've come a long way with the technology, but
you have come a long way.
Oh, well, let me tell you, today I felt like you probably do, Steve. And I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about Snapchat. Now, this is a 20-year-old talking to a 39-year-old listening, and I'm listening to this conversation, and it sounded to me like a conversation I had 20 years ago. My daughter tells me, gee whiz, Mom, if you want to see pictures of me and the kids, you're going to have to get on MySpace. Well, what's that? Well, you just go and check it out and you'll see. Okay. Then all of a sudden I'm not seeing anything, no pictures anymore. Oh, Mom, you got to get on Facebook. MySpace. You got to get on Facebook. You can't, I'm not, MySpace that's just passe. Yes. Like, okay. So now they're all over on Snapchat. Okay. Well, what the heck is Snapchat? It's 10 seconds of video. You can't search for anybody. You have to know their name ahead of time. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
What's it called?
Snapchat.
Yeah, and now Facebook is out with all the kids. They're all over on
Snapchat. The other day with a friend.
Right? Yeah. It's like, okay, well, you just have to keep up with it. That's
all. I guess I'm a dinosaur, because when I first started talking with you guys, I went out and bought a book on Periscope, and now Periscope is sitting back here on my bookshelf, and it's ready for the trash can.
People still Periscope.
I just wasted $15.
People still Periscope, though.
No,
yeah.
No. You know, the other thing is Anchor.
I hadn't heard of that one yet.
Anchor's kind of interesting because you can actually do an audio tweet and a reply. I can tweet a 2-minute audio file to you or anyone out to Twitter, and then people can respond if they have Anchor and we're connected. They can respond with a 1-minute response to my 2-minute tweet.
Well, all right.
I just figured out how I can make $1 million online.
How?
I'm going to set myself up as an expert for a platformname.com expert. And so they can contact me, and I will give them, names, and it's, your name should be blah blah.
Yeah.
And there we go. And I'll charge them $1,000 for that.
Hey.
I like that. Name your company.
Name your platform.
Oh man!
By an old geezer. So.
by your Medicare specialist.
That's right. That's right. That would work.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm so glad that I know both of you, and I'm really humbled and grateful that we get to connect and have fun on any level, whether it's in person or online. So it's great to be able to be here and enjoy learning about Medicare, learning about technology, and learning out how we can actually connect with others along the way. So
Thank
It's-
you.
it's really great to help others.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll see each other again next week, same time.
So same bat channel, same bat time next Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time.
We'll try to be, yeah, we'll try to make sure we're all here and on the same
Everything's
channel next
connected.
time.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Good night.
Bye bye.